The proposition, Dominic Reed was not a man who wasted time on pleasantries. The 35-year-old CEO of Vertex Technologies stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse office, watching the city lights flicker to life as dusk settled over Manhattan. His reflection showed what everyone expected: immaculate charcoal suit, precisely trimmed beard, and eyes that calculated worth faster than the algorithms his company had built its fortune on. "Mr. Reed, your 7 o'clock is here," his assistant announced through the intercom. Dominic didn't turn. "Send her in." The soft click of heels on marble announced her arrival before he finally pivoted to face Eliza Chen. She wasn't what he expected. The event planner's reputation for transforming corporate functions into memorable experiences had reached even his notoriously disinterested ears. But the woman before him looked more like an artist than a business person. Her crimson dress contrasted with her practical portfolio, and her direct gaze suggested she wasn't easily intimidated. "Mr. Reed, you requested my services on short notice. Must be quite the event," she said, extending her hand. "Not exactly." He gestured to the seating area. "Please." Eliza settled onto the leather sofa, notebook ready. "Then why am I here?" "I need a wife," Dominic stated flatly. Her pen clattered to the floor. "Excuse me?" "Temporarily," he clarified, retrieving her pen. "For approximately 1 year." Eliza's laughter died when she realized he wasn't joking. "Mr. Reed, I plan events. I don't provide whatever this is." "I'm aware of your financial situation, Ms. Chen. The foreclosure notice on your family's restaurant. Your father's medical bills." Her posture stiffened. "You've been investigating me." "I investigate everyone before I make an offer," Dominic replied, sliding a folder across the table. "My company is finalizing a merger with Nakamura Technologies. Their CEO is traditional, believes stable family men make reliable business partners. The board is pressuring me to present a more wholesome image." "So buy a golden retriever," Eliza snapped. A hint of amusement flickered across his face before disappearing. "The contract outlines everything. 1 year of marriage, public appearances, separate living arrangements within my home. In exchange, you receive $5 million. Half upon signing, half when our divorce is finalized next year." Eliza opened the folder, skimming the meticulously detailed document. "This is insane!" "It's business," Dominic corrected. "You need money. I need credibility. A mutually beneficial arrangement." She looked up, studying him. "Why me? Surely there are women in your social circle who'd jump at this opportunity." "Precisely why they're unsuitable. I need someone intelligent, enough to be convincing, but practical enough to understand this is strictly contractual. Someone with no connections to my industry who'll disappear quietly afterward." He paused. "Your event planning background makes you perfect. You understand performance, discretion, and how to navigate social circles you weren't born into." Eliza stood, pacing the expansive office. Her father's restaurant was 3 generations of family history, now weeks away from being lost. His medical treatments weren't covered by insurance. $5 million would solve everything and give her family security they'd never known. "There are conditions," she finally said. Dominic raised an eyebrow. "The contract is non-negotiable." "Then find someone else." She reached for her bag. "What conditions?" he asked before she could leave. "I maintain my business. I won't be paraded around like a trophy. And I want a clause that ensures the Chen family restaurant remains in my family's name permanently. You buy it, transfer ownership to my parents with funds for renovation." Dominic considered her for a long moment. "You're negotiating. I'm protecting what matters to me just as you are." He extended his hand. "We have an agreement, Ms. Chen." Eliza hesitated before shaking it, his grip firm and cool against her palm. "When do we start?" "Tonight. There's a charity gala. Consider it our first date." He checked his watch. We'll need a convincing story of whirlwind romance. My driver will collect you at 8. As she gathered her things to leave, Dominic added, "One more thing, Miss Chen. The most important clause, no emotions. This is a business transaction. Nothing more." Eliza nodded. "Trust me, Mr. Reed. Falling for someone like you is the last thing I'd ever worry about." The door closed behind her, and Dominic returned to the window, watching as she emerged onto the street below. For the briefest moment, he wondered if he'd made a miscalculation. Then he dismissed the thought. Emotions were inefficient. This was simply another strategic move in the game he'd been winning his entire life. Little did he know, the game was about to change completely. Paper promises. 3 weeks into their charade, Eliza was discovering that pretending to be in love with Dominic Reed required acting skills she didn't know she possessed. The world saw them as Manhattan's new power couple, the innovative tech, mogul, and the creative entrepreneur who had captured his heart. Reality was far less romantic. "Remember, the Nakamuras will be watching us tonight," Dominic murmured as they ascended the grand staircase of the Metropolitan Museum. The annual Innovation Gala was the most prestigious tech event of the season, and Dominic's pending merger made them the center of attention. Eliza adjusted the diamond bracelet he'd presented her with earlier. "For authenticity," he'd said, though the way his eyes had lingered when she tried it on felt anything but businesslike. "Don't worry, darling," she replied, perfecting the adoring smile she'd practiced in mirrors. "I've memorized all the details of our fabricated courtship." The museum's great hall had been transformed into a futuristic wonderland that would have impressed Eliza professionally if she weren't so distracted by the weight of Dominic's hand at the small of her back. It was always like this, calculated touches, precisely timed affectionate glances. Even their arguments were choreographed for public consumption, little disagreements that made their relationship seem authentic. Dominic's son, Hideo Nakamura, approached with his wife, bowing slightly. "And the lovely new Mrs. Reed?" "Not quite yet," Dominic corrected smoothly, squeezing Eliza's waist. "Though we're counting the days until the ceremony." "A small wedding," Eliza added, reciting their agreed-upon narrative. "Just family and close friends." Mrs. Nakamura smiled warmly. "Family is everything. Hideo was just saying how impressed he is that you've maintained such close relationships despite your busy schedules." Dominic's smile remained fixed, but Eliza felt him stiffen. "My parents have always supported my endeavors from afar." Eliza knew this was a lie. Their background research sessions had revealed that Dominic hadn't spoken to his parents in nearly a decade. After choosing business over the family construction company, "We're actually having dinner with them next weekend," Eliza improvised, ignoring Dominic's subtle warning squeeze. "I've been eager to meet them since Dominic speaks of them so fondly." The conversation moved to business matters, but Dominic's cold fury was palpable when they finally stepped away. "What was that?" he demanded under his breath, leading her to a quiet alcove. "Saving your merger," Eliza replied. "The Nakamuras clearly value family. Your estrangement would concern them. My family situation is not part of our arrangement." Neither was being interrogated about them, yet here we are. She softened her tone. "Dominic, for this to work, we need to present a complete picture. That includes reconciling with your parents, at least superficially." He turned away, jaw tight. "That's impossible." "Nothing's impossible for the great Dominic Reed," she challenged. "Isn't that your company motto?" Before he could respond, they were interrupted by a tall, elegant man with striking blue eyes. "There's the man of the hour," the newcomer said, extending his hand to Dominic. "And who might this vision be?" "Julian Blackwood, my fiancée, Eliza Chen," Dominic introduced, his tone noticeably cooler. "Julian is heading up the European expansion." "Julian, raised Eliza's hand to his lips. Dominic failed to mention his fiancée was breathtaking. And you failed to submit the quarterly projections, Dominic countered. Again. Eliza observed the tension between them with interest. Julian's charm seemed to particularly irritate Dominic, whose hand had returned to her waist, gripped slightly firmer than necessary. The evening progressed with champagne and networking. Eliza watched Dominic in his element, commanding, brilliant, ruthlessly efficient. Yet she caught glimpses of something else. The way his eyes darted to the exit during prolonged socializing. How he relaxed infinitesimally when she smoothly redirected overwhelming conversations. Later that night, as their town car glided through the city, Eliza broke their comfortable silence. Why technology? Dominic looked up from his phone. Excuse me? Of all the empires you could have built, why tech? He seemed to weigh whether to answer, then relented. It solves problems. It's precise, predictable. Unlike people, she observed. Exactly unlike people. Eliza studied his profile in the passing streetlights. You know, I called your parents today. The temperature in the car seemed to drop. You did what? They're coming for dinner next Saturday. Your mother cried when I introduced myself. Eliza held his glare steadily. They miss you, Dominic. You overstepped. I did my job. The contract states I'll assist in presenting an appropriate image for business purposes. The Nakamura's value family, therefore reconciliation serves our business purposes. Dominic's hand tightened around his phone. This arrangement doesn't give you the right to interfere in my personal affairs. There's nothing personal about this arrangement. She threw his words back at him. It's just business, remember? They rode in tense silence until reaching his penthouse. As they entered the elevator, Dominic finally spoke. My father wanted me to take over his construction company. When I refused, he said I was abandoning the family legacy. His voice was carefully neutral. The night I launched Vertex, he told me I'd never build anything that mattered. Eliza touched his arm gently. And now you've built an empire. An empire that means nothing to him. The elevator doors opened to his penthouse. Have them arrive at 7. I'll have the chef prepare something suitable. As Eliza turned toward her separate wing of the apartment, Dominic called after her, Eliza. He paused, unfamiliar with uncertainty. Thank you. For tonight. She smiled, recognizing how difficult those words were for him. Just doing my job, Mr. Reed. But as she prepared for bed, Eliza wondered if the warm flutter in her chest whenever he softened toward her was becoming dangerously unprofessional. The contract explicitly forbade real emotions, yet here she was, beginning to care about the man behind the empire. And worse still, she had the unsettling feeling he was beginning to care too. Dangerous territory. The Reed family dinner had gone surprisingly well, considering it began with 20 minutes of strained silence. Eliza had watched Dominic's parents, Marion and Howard, study their son with a mixture of pride and hesitation, years of estrangement creating an invisible barrier across the dining table. It was Eliza who finally broke through, asking Howard about the construction company's first major project. The floodgates opened as Howard described the community center they'd built and Dominic's childhood contributions, detailed blueprints, drawn in crayon. He redesigned the entire playground at 8 years old, Marion had said, eyes misting. The mayor actually implemented his changes. A month later, to Eliza's astonishment, Dominic was now regularly calling his parents. Something was shifting beneath his carefully constructed exterior. Today, Eliza stood in the gleaming Vertex Technologies lobby, waiting for Dominic to emerge from a board meeting. Their public appearances had become so routine that she no longer needed to remind herself to act like a woman in love. The pretense had developed its own rhythm, comfortable yet dangerous. Eliza, what a delightful surprise! She turned to find Julian Blackwood approaching, his British accent distinctive even in the bustling lobby. "Julian, I was just waiting for Dominic. Board meetings always run long," he replied with an easy smile. "Let me buy you a coffee while you wait." Eliza hesitated, remembering Dominic's evident dislike of the man. "I should probably stay here." "Dominic won't mind," Julian insisted, already guiding her toward the building's cafe. "Besides, I've been dying to ask how you accomplished the impossible." "The impossible?" "Making Dominic Reed act like a human being." Julian's eyes sparkled with mischief. "The office is abuzz with how you've transformed our robotic CEO." Eliza accepted a cappuccino, uncomfortable with Julian's assessment. He was never robotic, just focused. And now he's focused on you. Julian leaned closer. "The question everyone's asking is, what makes you different from all the others?" "Perhaps I see what others missed," she replied carefully. Julian studied her. "You genuinely care for him, don't you?" "How fascinating." Before Eliza could respond, a shadow fell across their table. "Julian!" Dominic's voice was glacial. "I wasn't aware you had a meeting with my fiancé." "Impromptu coffee?" Julian replied, unfazed by Dominic's obvious displeasure. "Eliza was kind enough to keep me company while you were detained." Dominic's jaw tightened. "We have a lunch reservation, if you'll excuse us." In the car, his silence was thunderous. Eliza waited for the explosion, but when Dominic finally spoke, his voice was controlled. "Julian Blackwood is not who you think he is." "And who do I think he is?" "A charming colleague." Dominic's fingers drummed against his thigh. "He's been attempting to undermine the Nakamura merger. I suspect corporate espionage." Eliza frowned. "That's a serious accusation. Which is why I'd prefer my fiancé, fake or otherwise, not to be seen conspiring with him." "Having coffee is hardly conspiring," Eliza objected, "and I'm perfectly capable of handling myself." Dominic turned to her, expression unreadable. "Just be careful around him." "Are you concerned about the merger, or is this something else?" she asked, studying his tense profile. "What else would it be?" Eliza leaned back against the leather seat. "I don't know, Dominic. Perhaps something that feels suspiciously like jealousy?" His laugh was short and dismissive. "Jealousy requires emotional investment. And you're incapable of that, right?" She wasn't sure why she was pushing him, only that his denial frustrated her. The car stopped outside an elegant restaurant, but Dominic made no move to exit. The contract was explicit, no real emotions. "Right," Eliza agreed, inexplicably hurt by his reminder. "Just business." The following weeks brought increasing complications. Dominic insisted Eliza accompany him to every function where Julian might be present, his hand possessively at her waist, his attention rarely leaving her. For business purposes, he claimed, protection of the merger. Yet something had undeniably changed between them. Their separate living spaces within the penthouse seemed less defined as Dominic began working from the living room rather than his office, asking her opinion on projects, sharing meals that extended long into the night with conversations beyond their fabricated backstory. One evening, returning from a gala, Eliza kicked off her heels with a groan. "I may never feel my feet again." Dominic poured 2 glasses of wine. "You didn't have to dance with every board member." Julian said it would help cement their support. "For the merger," she explained, accepting the glass gratefully. "Julian says many things," Dominic muttered. "He was particularly attentive tonight." Eliza took a sip, watching him over the rim. "He was being polite." "He was being obvious." Dominic loosened his tie with uncharacteristic agitation. "The man practically undressed you with his eyes all evening. And that bothers you because it's disrespectful. To you or to me?" Dominic set down his glass. "To us." The word hung between them, loaded with implications neither was prepared to acknowledge. There is no us, Dominic, Eliza reminded him softly. Just a contract with an expiration date. Something flickered in his eyes, vulnerability quickly masked by practiced indifference. Of course, I misspoke. The moment stretched between them, taut with unspoken feelings. Then Dominic's phone rang, Hideo Nakamura, with news that threatened everything. They've received concerning information, Dominic explained after the call, pacing the living room. Anonymous tips suggesting Vertex is unstable. They're reconsidering the merger. Julian? Possibly. Dominic ran a hand through his hair, a rare display of agitation. Nakamura wants to move up their due diligence visit. They'll be here tomorrow. What do you need from me? His eyes met hers, unusually vulnerable. Just be you. The way you were with my parents. Nakamura trusts you. Eliza nodded, ignoring the warmth that spread through her at his words. This was still business. She couldn't forget that. Later that night, unable to sleep, Eliza wandered to the kitchen for tea. She found Dominic at the counter, staring at financial projections. You should rest, she said, filling the kettle. So should you. He closed his laptop. I've been thinking about what happens after. After the merger? After our year. His voice was careful, measured. You'll have your money. Your family's restaurant will be secure. Eliza focused on preparing her tea, avoiding his gaze. That was the agreement. And if the agreement changed? Her heart stuttered. What are you saying, Dominic? He stepped closer, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from him. I'm saying I don't know if I want this to end in 9 months. Eliza looked up, searching his face. This is a dangerous conversation. I know. His hand reached for hers, fingers intertwining. I've built my life avoiding danger, avoiding vulnerability. Then you walked in and... Her phone rang, shattering. The moment. Julian's name flashed on the screen. Why is he calling you at midnight? Dominic's walls immediately reassembled. I don't know. Eliza hesitated, then answered. Julian, his voice was urgent. Don't react. Dominic needs to see this. Check your email. Documents proving someone at Vertex is sabotaging the merger. It's not me. After the call, she showed Dominic the forwarded files, internal communications, suggesting his own CFO was working against the merger, feeding information to competitors. Thomas has been with me since the beginning, Dominic said, disbelieving. Why would Julian have this information? He said he's been investigating independently because he knew you suspected him. Dominic's expression hardened. Or this is an elaborate setup. What if it's not? Eliza challenged. What if Julian is actually trying to help? And what if this is exactly what he wants, to create division before Nakamura arrives? Dominic closed the laptop decisively. I need to handle this my way. By shutting everyone out, even me, especially you. His tone was final. This is why emotions have no place in business, Eliza. They cloud judgment. We need to remember what this arrangement really is. The warmth of their almost confession evaporated, leaving Eliza feeling hollow. She'd allowed herself to forget, just for a moment, that her role in his life was temporary. A business transaction with terms and conditions, not a relationship with potential. You're right, she said, retreating both physically and emotionally. I almost forgot my place. As she returned to her room, Eliza faced the truth she'd been avoiding. Somewhere between fake smiles and real conversations, she'd broken the most important clause in their contract. She'd fallen in love with Dominic Reed, and tomorrow would test whether business truly came before everything else in his world. Breaking point. The Nakamura contingent arrived precisely at 9 the following morning. Eliza greeted them in the Vertex Technologies conference room, her professional event planner persona firmly in place despite her sleepless night. Dominic stood beside her, every inch the confident CEO, no trace of their midnight confrontation visible in his demeanor. "Mrs. Nakamura, what a pleasure to see you again," Eliza said warmly, accepting the woman's embrace. "Please, call me Kimiko," she insisted. "We will be like family once our companies join." Hideo Nakamura was less effusive, his handshake formal as he addressed Dominic. "We have much to discuss today. Concerning information has reached us." "All rumors and misunderstandings," Dominic assured him smoothly. "Thomas will walk you through our financials personally." Eliza noticed Julian watching from across the room, his expression unreadable. Thomas, the CFO, stood near the presentation screen, immaculately dressed and collected. Nothing about him suggested the betrayal Julian's documents had implied. "I've arranged a tour of the R&D department while the executives meet," Eliza told, Kimiko following the plan she and Dominic had created. Keep the Nakamuras separated. Dominic would handle Hideo's concerns while Eliza charmed Kimiko. As they walked through the building, Kimiko admired the innovative workspace. "You've had quite an effect on Dominic-san. Hideo has known him for years and says he's never seen him so balanced." "He's always been exceptional at what he does," Eliza replied diplomatically. Kimiko smiled knowingly. "There is a Japanese concept, kintsugi, the art of repairing broken pottery with gold. The repair becomes part of the object's history, making it more beautiful than before." She patted Eliza's hand. "You are the gold in his broken places." The metaphor struck uncomfortably close to Eliza's heart. "Dominic isn't broken. Everyone carries fractures, Eliza-san. The strongest people often have the deepest ones." Their tour ended at the executive floor, where they found the conference room doors flung open and raised voices spilling into the hallway. "These accusations are baseless," Thomas was saying as Eliza and Kimiko entered. "I've given 12 years to this company." Dominic stood at the head of the table, Julian beside him with an open laptop displaying the incriminating documents. "Then explain these communications with Nextech," Dominic demanded, his voice deadly calm. "Explain why our proprietary algorithms were found in their latest prototype." Thomas's face flushed. "This is a setup. Blackwood has been gunning for my position for months." Hideo Nakamura observed the confrontation with growing concern. "Perhaps we should postpone." "No," Dominic cut him off. "This will be resolved now." He turned to Thomas. "You're terminated, effective immediately. Security will escort you out." As security personnel appeared at the door, Thomas's composure cracked. "You'll regret this, Reed. I made you. Without me, you'd still be coding in your parents' garage." "And without me," Dominic replied coldly, "you'd never have left middle management. Clear your desk within the hour." Eliza watched the calculated precision with which Dominic handled the situation. No emotion, just ruthless efficiency. This was the man she'd first met, not the one who had almost confessed feelings last night. The meeting resumed, but the atmosphere remained tense. Julian presented evidence that Thomas had been sabotaging the merger for months, feeding false information to both Nakamura and competing firms. Dominic outlined corrective measures with machine-like focus, not once looking at Eliza. Hours later, when the Nakamuras finally departed, the merger still tentatively on track, Dominic retreated to his office without a word to anyone. "Well, that was unpleasant," Julian commented, finding Eliza in the empty conference room. "Though necessary." "You knew," she accused quietly. "You knew Thomas was the saboteur all along." Julian shrugged. "I had suspicions, needed evidence." "Why didn't you take it directly to Dominic?" "Would he have believed me?" Julian's smile was knowing. "You were my conduit, Eliza. He trusts you. even if he trusts no one else. She gathered her belongings, uncomfortable with Julian's assessment. I should check on him. He won't thank you for it, Julian warned. Dominic processes betrayal by shutting down. Trust me, I've known him since university. And yet he clearly doesn't trust you, Eliza observed. Julian's expression softened. Dominic doesn't allow himself to trust anyone, not even you, despite his feelings. What would you know about his feelings? Enough to recognize when the great Dominic Reed is falling in love against his better judgment. Julian leaned against the doorframe. The question is, what will you do about it? Eliza didn't answer, instead making her way to Dominic's office. She found him standing at the window, silhouette stark against the fading daylight. The Nakamuras will complete the merger, he said without turning. Crisis averted. That's good news, Eliza replied cautiously. Thomas was with me from the beginning. His voice was flat. My first hire. The closest thing to a friend I allowed myself in this business. Eliza approached slowly. I'm sorry. Don't be. It validates what I've always known. Personal connections are liabilities in business. The deliberate coldness in his tone stopped her. Is that what I am? A liability? Dominic finally turned, his expression closed. You're a contractual obligation, one that has served its purpose admirably. Each word landed like a physical blow. Last night, you said, last night was a momentary lapse in judgment, he interrupted. One I won't repeat. So that's it? You just shut down because someone betrayed your trust? I'm refocusing on what matters. The merger is nearly secured. Your financial compensation will be transferred as agreed. Eliza felt something breaking inside her. This isn't about the money, Dominic. Then what is it about? His voice rose slightly. Please enlighten me. What did you expect from this arrangement? I didn't expect anything. I didn't expect to meet your parents or help reconcile your family. I didn't expect to care about your company or your dreams. Her composure cracked. And I certainly didn't expect to fall in love with you. The confession hung between them, irretrievable. Dominic stared at her, momentary shock quickly replaced by practiced indifference. That was explicitly against our agreement, he said after a painful silence. Eliza laughed bitterly. You think I chose this? That I wanted to care about a man who views emotions as inefficient? Emotions are inefficient, he responded automatically, and temporary. Thomas proved that today. Thomas betrayed you for money, not because he cared too much, Eliza countered. There's a difference between vulnerability and weakness, Dominic. Not in my experience. He returned to his desk, effectively dismissing her. The Nakamuras will announce the merger next week. After that, we can begin discussing dissolution terms. Dissolution terms, she repeated hollowly. Is that how you see us? A business transaction to be dissolved? That's all this ever was. His eyes finally met hers, deliberately empty. You knew that from the beginning. Eliza felt something inside her harden. Yes, I did. Thank you for the reminder. She left his office with her dignity intact, but by the time she reached the penthouse, the tears she'd been holding back spilled freely. Moving methodically, she packed her essential belongings. This charade had gone too far, cost too much emotionally. The contract could go to hell. 2 hours later, Dominic returned to find her suitcases by the door. What is this? He demanded. I'm staying with my parents tonight, Eliza explained calmly, though her eyes were still red. I think we need space. The Nakamuras expect— I don't care what they expect, she interrupted. I can't do this anymore, Dominic, not like this. His expression tightened. You're breaking our contract. No, I'm protecting myself. She picked up her bags. You were right about one thing. This arrangement has served its purpose. You'll get your merger. I'll take enough money to save my family's restaurant. The rest you can keep. That's not the agreement. I'm amending the terms. Eliza moved toward the elevator. Consider it a business decision, cutting my losses. Dominic stepped forward, uncharacteristic uncertainty in his movement. Eliza, don't, she warned. Don't say something you don't. Mean just to salvage the arrangement. The elevator arrived with a soft chime. What if the merger falls through? He asked, a final attempt to maintain control. Eliza stepped into the elevator, turning to face him one last time. Then you'll have to decide what matters more, Dominic, your business or the people who care about you. Because contrary to what you believe, they're not mutually exclusive. As the doors closed between them, Eliza saw something crack in his carefully composed expression, the faintest glimpse of the man behind the CEO facade, the one who'd almost admitted he wanted more than a paper marriage. But almost wasn't enough. Not anymore. Rewriting the terms, 3 weeks had passed since Eliza walked out of Dominic's penthouse and his carefully ordered life. 3 weeks of throwing herself into her event planning business, of helping her father recover at the newly renovated family restaurant, of ignoring the business news that announced the successful Vertex-Nakamura merger. 3 weeks of pretending her heart wasn't broken. You're staring at your phone again, her father observed, sliding a cup of tea across the restaurant's counter. The morning sunlight streamed through the new windows that Dominic's money had paid for, though she'd accepted only enough to save the restaurant, not the full amount they'd agreed upon. Just checking emails, Eliza lied, tucking the device away. James Chen studied his daughter with knowing eyes. You know, when I met your mother, I tried to convince myself it was just a business arrangement, too. Eliza looked up sharply. What? Her family owned the competing restaurant across the street, he explained, polishing glasses with practiced ease. I convinced her to collaborate on a joint menu, purely for business purposes, of course. You never told me this. Some love. Stories are too embarrassing to share with your children. He smiled wistfully. I spent months pretending I only cared about the profit margins, when really I just wanted to see her smile. Eliza's throat tightened. What happened? She called. My bluff. Said she was taking a job in Chicago unless I gave her a reason to stay. Her father set down the glass. Best decision I ever made, running after that taxi. Before Eliza could respond, the restaurant door chimed. Marion Reed stood in the entrance, elegant as always in her tailored blazer. Marion, Eliza greeted, surprise, evident in her voice. Is everything all right? That depends on your definition of all right, Dominic's mother replied, taking a seat at the counter. My son hasn't slept in 3 weeks, barely eats, and has terrified half his executive board with his mood swings. So no, I wouldn't say things are all right. Eliza's heart stuttered. The merger went through. I saw the announcement. Yes, the precious merger. Marion waved dismissively. The thing he's worked toward for years. You'd think he'd be celebrating. Business success was always his priority, Eliza said carefully. Marion studied her intently. You know, when Howard and I first met you, we thought you were just another calculated move in Dominic's chess game. Then we saw how he looked at you when he thought no one was watching. Eliza looked away. It was an arrangement. Nothing more. Was it? Marion reached for Eliza's hand. Because the son who's finally speaking to us again, who called his father for advice last week, who showed up at our door at midnight asking how we've stayed married for 40 years, that's not the Dominic we've known since he was 18. What are you saying? I'm saying my stubborn, brilliant, emotionally stunted son is in love with you, Marion stated plainly, and he has absolutely no idea what to do about it. Eliza's father chose that moment to discreetly retreat to the kitchen, leaving the women alone. If that were true, Eliza said, fighting to keep her voice steady, he's had 3 weeks to say something. Dominic built an empire by never admitting vulnerability, Marion replied. You think he knows how to say I was wrong or I'm afraid? She sighed. The night you left, he called Howard for the first time in a decade and asked how he knew I was the one. Hope flickered in Eliza's chest before she ruthlessly extinguished it. Words mean nothing without actions to back them up, Marion smiled cryptically. Which is why I'm here with this. She slid an envelope across the counter. The official dissolution of your contract already signed by Dominic. No strings, no obligations, you're free. Eliza stared at the envelope, inexplicable disappointment washing over her. I see. There's something else, Marion added. The restaurant across the street? Dominic bought the building yesterday. What? Why? You should ask him yourself. Marion stood, checking her watch. Preferably within the hour. He has a rather important announcement scheduled. After Marion left, Eliza sat motionless, the unopened envelope before her. Finally, curiosity drove her to cross the street, where a crew was removing the old signage from the long-abandoned building. Excuse me, she called to a worker. What's happening here? New tech hub opening, the man explained. Some kind of, community center thing. Boss said it'll be ready for the press conference at noon. Puzzled, Eliza returned to the restaurant, where her father was watching the local business news on the small television behind the counter. Live from downtown, where Vertex Technologies CEO Dominic Reed is about to make what insiders are calling a game-changing announcement, the reporter was saying. The camera panned to a podium where Dominic stood, looking simultaneously commanding and exhausted. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, but his voice was steady as he addressed the gathered press. 3 months ago, I announced Vertex's merger with Nakamura Technologies, promising innovation that would transform our industry, he began. Today, I'm announcing something more important. He paused, scanning the crowd as if searching for someone. Vertex Technologies is launching a new initiative, the Reed Foundation for Community Innovation. Our first project will transform vacant buildings in underserved neighborhoods into technology education centers, starting with the property across from Chen Family Restaurant. Eliza's breath caught as the camera showed renderings of the building she'd just visited. This location is significant, Dominic continued. It's where I first learned that buildings can be more than structures. They can be legacies. My father taught me that lesson when I was 8 years old, designing a playground that still stands today. The camera cut to Howard and Marion Reed. In the front row, Howard wiping suspiciously at his eyes. I spent most of my life believing success meant building something untouchable, Dominic said, abandoning his prepared notes. I was wrong. True success is building something worth sharing. He looked directly into the camera then, as if he knew Eliza would be watching. I recently made the greatest mistake of my life, he confessed, shocking the audience into silence. I chose business over love. I chose fear over vulnerability. I built walls instead of bridges. Eliza's hands trembled as she reached for her father's arm. The merger with Nakamura succeeded, Dominic continued, but at a personal cost I'm no longer willing to pay. Effective immediately, I'm stepping down as CEO of Vertex Technologies to focus on the foundation, and he hesitated. Rebuilding what matters most. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The reporter turned to the camera, clearly flustered. In a stunning development, tech mogul Dominic Reed has just... Eliza was already moving, grabbing her jacket, and rushing toward the door. Where are you going? Her father called after her. To call his bluff, she replied, breaking into a run. 20 minutes and one very expensive taxi ride later, Eliza pushed through the dispersing crowd outside Vertex headquarters. Security initially blocked her path, but Julian appeared at her elbow. About time, he said with a knowing smile, escorting her past the guards. He's in the conference room, terrorizing the board with his resignation speech. You knew about this? Julian shrugged. I may have suggested that grand gestures Work better than brooding in penthouses. Though the foundation was entirely his idea, rather brilliant, actually. He led her to the conference room doors, but stopped short of opening them. Fair warning, he's still terrible at emotions, but he's trying. Eliza took a deep breath and pushed open the doors. The board members froze mid-argument, Dominic at the head of the table with unsigned papers before him. Eliza, he breathed, hope and uncertainty warring in his expression. Everyone out, she commanded, channeling his CEO tone. The board members looked to Dominic, who nodded without taking his eyes from her. When the room emptied, leaving them alone, neither spoke for a long moment. "You're stepping down," she finally said. "Yes." "Why?" Dominic stood, moving toward her with careful steps. "Because you were right. About everything." "You'll have to be more specific," she said, fighting to keep her voice steady. "The night Thomas betrayed me, I used it as proof that vulnerability was weakness," he explained. "But these past weeks without you proved the opposite. I built a company worth billions, secured the merger I've worked toward for years, and none of it matters without you." Eliza crossed her arms. "So this foundation, turning buildings into community centers, this is about me?" "No," he answered honestly. "It's about who I am when I'm with you. The person who remembers why he loved designing buildings as a child. The person who wants to build something meaningful, not just profitable." He reached for her hands, and this time, she didn't pull away. "I spent my life avoiding risk, Eliza, calculating odds, minimizing variables." His voice roughened. "But loving you is the one risk I can't afford not to take." "Loving me?" she repeated, needing to hear it explicitly. "Yes." Dominic's thumbs traced circles on her palms. "I love you. Not as part of a contract or business arrangement. I love your strength, your compassion, how you see past my defenses. To the person I've been afraid to be." Tears blurred Eliza's vision. "You hurt me." "Yes." Dominic's thumbs traced circles on her palms. "I love you. Not as part of a contract or business arrangement. I love your strength, your compassion, how you see past my defenses to the person I've been afraid to be." Tears blurred Eliza's vision. "You hurt me." "I know," he acknowledged, genuine remorse in his eyes. "I was terrified. The merger was familiar territory, but this—" He gestured between them. "Loving someone means risking everything." "It does," she agreed softly. "That's what makes it valuable." Dominic reached into his pocket, withdrawing a small velvet box. "I had this made the day after you left. I've carried it every day since, hoping for the courage to use it." He opened the box to reveal not a ring but a key. "A key?" she questioned. "To a home," he explained. "Not my penthouse. A real home. I bought a brownstone near your parents' restaurant. It needs renovation, but I thought—" He hesitated, vulnerability evident in every line of his body. "I thought we could design it together, build something new." Eliza took the key, emotions overwhelming her. "Are you proposing?" "Not yet," Dominic answered with surprising honesty. "When I propose, it won't be with a contract or conditions. It will be because we've built something real together, something based on love rather than convenience." He stepped closer, one hand gently lifting her chin. "I'm proposing a new agreement. No expiration date, no terms and conditions. Just two people choosing each other, every day." "And if I say yes," Eliza whispered. "Then we start writing our real story," he answered. "One where business doesn't come first, where emotions aren't weaknesses but strengths." Eliza studied him, the man who had transformed from the cold CEO to someone brave enough to dismantle his own walls. "I have conditions," she said finally, a smile tugging at her lips. Dominic's eyebrows rose. "Name them." First, the community center needs an arts program alongside the technology focus. Done. Second, you need to call your parents at least once a week. His lips twitched. They'll expect dinner too. And third, Eliza continued, stepping fully into his space, you have to promise never to pretend you don't have feelings again, even when it's terrifying. Especially when it's terrifying, he agreed, arms encircling her waist. Is that all? One more thing, she murmured, fingers tracing the line of his jaw. I love you too, Dominic Reed. The real you. Not the CEO, not the business genius. Just you. His smile, genuine and unguarded, transformed his face completely. Then we have an agreement, Ms. Chen. This time, when their lips met, there was no audience to perform for, no business deal to secure. Just a man and woman who had discovered that the most valuable contract was the unwritten one between their hearts, a promise to choose love over fear, vulnerability over isolation, and each other over everything else. 3 months later, as they stood in their half-renovated brownstone, blueprints spread across makeshift tables and paint samples covering the walls, Dominic pulled Eliza away from her meticulous kitchen designs. I've been thinking, he said, leading her to the window overlooking the garden they'd planted together. A dangerous pastime, she teased. Indeed. He knelt before her, this time with a ring instead of a key. About rewriting our terms one last time. As tears of joy spilled down Eliza's cheeks, she gave the only answer that had ever truly mattered, one based not on business or obligation, but on the most powerful merger of all, 2 hearts becoming one. Yes, she whispered. 1,000 times yes.